food debate shouldn't be looked at an isolated debate. It's a complex set of events that are really doing. But I would insist that as young people, it is important that we shift the debate from food security to hunger. I think food security is an INGO agenda, if you ask me. That's my honest assessment. Because they are more worried of the trade surpluses that they had, the agricultural overcapacity that they had, etc., etc. And, it's a dubious argument that came in. Whereas what is required in India is that we don't want anybody to be hungry. Hungry is the most disempowering way, and keeping people hungry is the way regimes perpetuate their exploitation. So I think we got to understand that in a very different way. If we posit the hunger way, at least something would be done. Jesus Christ and Obama will get touched or something like that. But if we take the food security way, it's going to be totally an economic argument, and I think that's not the way to take our agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Professor Gopal. Now we would have final word from youth representative, Shikha Chauhan from JNU. She's studying law and governance.
Hello everybody. Though many of the points have already been said, but I would like to still go on with what I have come with. Okay. With agriculture becoming undependable and unpredictable, falling world grain output as well as availability, growing speculative investments in raw materials, high food price, increasing conversion of food crops into biofuels, etc. have made food security a critical issue today. Moreover, agribusiness policies and WTO, NAFTA, SAFTA policies pressurizing the national governments to eliminate tariffs on imports and protection to small farmers and open their products to transnational corporations, while markets of the North remain highly protective, making South dependent on the food imports, is an issue. Thus, increasing inequalities and relative deprivations make food security the new agenda for ecological sustainability and social justice. Food security depends not only on production, but also on policies and institutions that translate production into food availability, access and utilization by the population, improve regional, domestic, and national trade, and a program to improve the quality and quantity of food available. G20 is an important platform for developed as well as the developing world, and I believe that G20, through its policies and coordinating efforts, can do much more to stop price swings and rising hunger than any of the Rome-based UN food agencies, like WFP or FAO. G20's decision so far to remove food export restrictions on extraordinary taxes for food purchased for humanitarian purposes by World Food Programme, its backing for an ECOWAS initiative in West Africa, support for targeted nutrition safety nets, efficient and flexible food assistance, and efforts to improve the lot of small farmers are steps highly commendable and in the right direction. However, there are a few observations to be made. Firstly, G20's envisioned role in providing agricultural assistance plan calls for greater investments in sustainable agriculture, including agricultural research and innovation, to enable greater food production in the face of climate change. Part of the plan builds on promises made way back in 2009 as part of La Aquila Initiative and Pittsburgh G20 Initiative to provide a $20 billion investment in the form of new agricultural investment. Very little of the money, however, pledged has actually been committed to the multilateral channel that was supposed to receive these funds. That is the World Bank's Global Agricultural and Food Security Program. Only 22% of the pledged funds have been committed through both multilateral and bilateral channels so far. They need to be actually delivered now and ensure that they go towards genuinely sustainable agricultural production. Secondly, the lack of timely and accurate information about the market situation is being seen as one of the primary reasons for food price volatility in 2008-9 and again in 2010. It's believed that better market information system would help deal with some of the worst problems. AMIS, that is Agricultural Marketing Information System, was recently launched in Rome in September 2011 to gather and disseminate information on commodity productivity and market transactions in the hope that it will contribute to a less volatile and better functioning market. However, UN Food and Agricultural Organization already collates and publishes such data with a regular reporting on outlook for food and individual commodity markets. Moreover, USAID's Famine Early Warning System network is already in place. What's the need of establishing such a system instead of diverting resources for capacity building at the local data level, local data collection level? Thus, a lot of initiatives seem to be ill-funded and a duplication of efforts without being clear on the real value added to the initiative. Thirdly, G20's initiative on biofuels and agrofuels are one of the major drivers of speculation in the commodity markets. G20 did make some inroads by endorsing the recommendations of International Organization of the Securities Commission about improving regulation and strengthening market infrastructure. But probably, financial factors continue to deter any progress in this regard. Biofuel policies are urgent areas of regulatory change coordinated at the global level. Biofuel policy so far has been the weakest component of the action plan. With the entire focus being on quantity and access, no clear agreement has emerged with regard to the SUN movement, that is Scale the Nutrition movement. G20 also agreed on the creation of food reserves to assist in the fight against poverty and hunger. However, it refers to food only in the context of humanitarian crisis when it could have been done in order to reduce food price volatility. As it's widely recognized that now the growing speculative investments in agricultural commodity derivatives have been an important contributor to food price volatility. The G20 should develop a collective policy on the issue as they host almost all of the world's commodity futures market, including US, South Africa, India, Brazil, China being the largest. The efforts with respect to regulation of speculations on commodity derivative markets have been weak. So it's important to coordinate regulatory changes to prevent commodity investors from moving to less regulated areas. It should ensure that members agree on standards to address speculation relative to conventional hedging, increased capital deposit requirements in future transactions, and transparency. India, along with other members, should reinforce the central role of WTO at G20 and reject the idea of any bilateral FTAs as an alternative to Doha round negotiations. India should partner with key countries like South Africa and Brazil to ensure that women and climate-affected communities remain central to the deliberations that will be held in Rio 2012. G20 should regulate investment as well as benefit sharing. Benefit sharing as in the use of traditional knowledge systems to generate traditional knowledge systems from indigenous communities by pharmaceutical industry to generate new human genetic resources. However, differences within the G20 on tariff reduction for liberalizing agricultural trade has an impact on the political position of G20 on the global forum, especially differences between Argentina and Brazil and India and Pakistan, and also the issue of overlapping memberships, that is between G33 and G20 countries and between Cairns Group and G20 countries. It should be addressed through more democratic deliberations on issues within the group. Thus, what we need is sustained investments and partnerships to keep on the path of growth and equity. As per the recommendations made by France at Cannes Summit, basic tools of development have to be made cheaper through innovation and new, more efficient ways of delivering them. More South-South cooperation should be promoted in order to create breakthrough tools for development. Moreover, any outcome or success should be measured in terms of progress towards Millennium Development Goals. In this regard, G20 could foremost encourage a documentation of best practice models at the regional and global levels that could be further remodeled and adapted as per the local needs and demands. There has to be an increasing emphasis on capacity building at all levels with effective decentralization of authority, finance, as well as knowledge systems. Moreover, the role of private and civil society sectors have to be clearly defined along with respective regulatory and accountability structures. For example, though India places a lot of emphasis on PPP approach in its approach paper to 12th five-year plan, it neither defines their role clearly nor have a regulatory framework in place. G20 could evolve a regulatory framework in this regard at the international level. Now, if all these are not translated into appropriate policies and initiatives at the national level, then the real purpose is lost in the process. It is important to reassess our own revenues and prioritize balanced growth. According to MS Swaminathan Research Institute, we have around 127 sub-agroclimatic zones in India, And we need more research stations for comprehensive data collection and analysis, especially with regard to weather forecast and crops-related data. We need to move beyond the factors of monsoon and new season production as a mitigating factor. Public distribution system as a welfare mechanism needs to be strengthened. There has to be more and more emphasis on capacity building and risk management, as without it, decentralization fails. There has to be an increased cooperation, not only in terms of resources, but more in terms of knowledge and technology transfer in order to build a robust tropical agricultural technologies and productive system. One more para. There has to be an increased, okay, I just want to finish it. There has to be an increased public investment in agriculture, as domestic resources will anyways be the greatest source of funding for development. Social protection measures for the vulnerable communities should be prioritized. National and regional food reserves should be upscaled and modernized. More local and cooperative arrangements among small farmers should be promoted with an emphasis on technical and financial support, as at 80% of the farmers are small and own less than 2 hectares of land. Reforming markets is another important step. Farmers in India are unable to realize the real economic value of their products in the market, as they do not have access to the markets due to the presence of middlemen. So I propose that Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee Act should be amended, which legitimizes middlemen in the farm sector. Private sector could be encouraged for storage, management supply chains, reduce post-harvest losses and insurance. However, government should continue to own the public distribution system. Small and marginal farmers need to be brought together in order to improve their profitability and productivity with the help of strengthened institutional and support systems. Kerala's Sangha Krishi experiment is an apt example of such an agroecological approach in this regard. Area under agriculture needs to be increased. Also, scientific and technological innovations need to focus on developing climate-resilient farming practices. India ranks 132nd out of 183 countries as per the World Bank report on ease of doing business. Trading across borders is the indicator that is worst in the case of India, coupled with a decline in country's export performance. Thus, more efforts for promotion of border trades should be taken up. And the recent initiative of opening up border hearts along the Indo-Bangladesh border is a commendable initiative in this regard. Thank you.
Thanks. Excellent, very comprehensive. Thank you. Now, friends, we have 9 minutes, and I would encourage you to come up with sharp questions, observations, and those of you who have spoken in the previous session may give chance to your other colleagues so that everyone can participate. Now, yes, so I would start from there. I see the last hand there in this, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Umesh Mukhi from France, and I'm doing my PhD in sustainable development. So it's been a little bit difficult to digest those heavy words now, but I'm going to tell you something very basic, and I question the identity of G20. It's been 4 years I've been staying in France, and I haven't seen so far the price rise in any of the commodity. And every year I come back to India and I see that the prices are doubling. Now this year, a few of my friends were with me in the car, and they were questioning me that how come in India we have this paradox that this person is hungry here, and on the other side you have those skyscrapers. And it had put me in dilemma that what should I answer to this situation. So going back to G20, do we really see G20 communicating that agenda that we are actually fighting against food security? Now, one of the panelists said that it may take 2 or 3 years of time to implement policies and to remove hunger. Any person can start up an NGO and can reduce the problem of hunger within 1 month, and there are NGOs working on that. So what is G20 doing in that? Any person in YPD, we tell 2 people to start an initiative, and within 4 to 5 days, we'll see a program coming up. So why G20 is failing to implement such programs? Is it a political thing which is disrupting this thing?
Thank you.
Or is it something else?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So, as I answer, Umesh, the fact that regarding politics, there is one American national security advisor named Henry Kissinger, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in way back in 1973. The next year, he gave a plan, food plan, which is termed as Food Genocide Plan of Henry Kissinger of 1974. And if you search it in Google, the first country which he talks about reducing the population is none other than India. The second, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Turkey, Philippines, Ethiopia, Nigeria. And this is, no matter what they try and do, they have implemented this plan 25 years later, and now it is well in process. And they will, no matter how much we try, they are sugarcoating everything. And the real fact is what they have been they have planned it way back 36 years ago. So that's what I want to say, sir. Like, how come they are quoting everything, but they are not giving anything substantial in a way that should help the poor people?
Thank you. Anybody from this side? Yeah.
Could we keep the questions short and to the point?
I am Khem Negi from Delhi University. I have a question. The first is, one side we are talking of high growth, basically industrialization. Another side we are talking of the food security. I think both of these issues are contradicting each other. For high growth, we need industrialization, for which we need basically land, which our corporate grabs from the poor farmers. Another side, we need land for agriculture, and I have simply a question for this. Is there any mechanism to coordinate the corporate sector and agriculture, both?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
My question is to the person from FCRI. 2 days back, our Prime Minister were requesting Chief Secretaries of States to make some amendment in APMC Act. That it, and the girl has raised the issue of integrating North-South issue. That North is having their own agricultural problems and South is depending on imports. So we are integrating with the G20, and how we can integrate the Indian agriculture as a whole. That's my question.
Good. Now this, and then we close. Yeah, one lady. Yeah. We come to him, and then lady, and then this person. So 3, and then we close.
Sir, I'm Rohit from Campus Law Center, Delhi University. I just want to ask a very simple question, that food security is not just productivity, is not just feeding the people, it's also include nutritional factors. So one side we are talking about that climate change is affecting the food security and food production, and we need the technology to come up in a manner that so we can improve the nutritional factor. Here, one side we is saying this thing, and another side we are actually protesting against Monsanto and National Biotechnology Regulating Authority bill. I just simply ask one question, that's why it's happening.
Very good. The lady, and then you. First the lady, and then you. Thank you.
So I'm Rupali from Thapa University, and my question is directed to Mr. K.S. Gopal. Sir, I read this article which said that if the malnutrition in India were to form a country, it would be the 5th largest in the world. And sir, even as I talk, there are millions of tons of food which gets rotted each and every year in India. So sir, I think the main problem is storage. And why are we not looking into this problem? And how do you think FDI in retail, increasing FDI in retail can help the storage, help the companies in investing storage? Because as it is, FDI in storage is allowed in India, but the companies don't find it lucrative enough without FDI in retail. So that is my question.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Sachin Mangla from IIT Delhi. Yeah, I would like to ask first one question, that G20 should make a consensus on food security or maybe hunger, what Mr. Gopal has said, because I would like to give one incident to support this, that in the last year the Supreme Court has given the suggestion that it's better to give food to the poor rather than rot in the FCI. So our Prime Minister said that don't tell us what we have to do. So there should be a broad consensus on food security, and I think that's lacking. And there is one indirect issue, that is how to shift the population from the agriculture sector, because our 60% of the population is dependent on agriculture, and in the developed nations, and that only less than 5% people are able to produce for the whole of the nation. So how we have to shift that population in the...
Got the question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So now I would request Professor Ganesh Kumar and Dr. Gopal to respond to all the issues that have come up, specifically ask questions, 1 minute each, and then we close.
Okay. I'm sorry, I missed the first question, but let me start from the second. The Kissinger plan was a miserable failure. The population of the South Asia is double of 1970s, okay? So it's a miserable failure. APMC Act and integrating Indian agriculture, it is a spatial issue, okay? That you have to worry about, it's a deeper issue in affecting several sides of it. You have to understand that if, for example, the productivity levels in Punjab and Haryana are very high, a large part of that high productivity is sustained by subsidies, input subsidies, water, electricity, fertilizer. Now, how can you then try to push rice cultivation in Bihar or West Bengal or Orissa when you have subsidies supporting agriculture in one part and you don't have any other support mechanism in the other? Now, if you try to support everywhere, you are going to have a mountain which is bigger than 60 million tons in the Godown, okay? 60 million ton itself is a crime. So you have to do rebalancing, but then you have to, this is a spatial rebalancing that is required. But the spatial rebalancing is very closely tied up to commodity rebalancing in Punjab and the northwest in India. They have to quit rice and get into other high value agricultural commodities for which you need to develop markets. APMC Act, there is a model act. Many states have made reforms in paper, nothing on the ground, okay? No implementation on the ground. It's a deeper issue which will take time, okay? It's also closely tied up to the issue of agricultural transition. How do you get people out of the agriculture and rural areas? It's questionable whether people really want to get out of, don't assume that everybody wants to get out of rural areas. Many may be wanting to live in rural areas, okay? But the important thing is, if your cities are not habitable, if your cities don't have housing, where will they come and live? It is not an agricultural issue. It is an issue in urban development, it's an issue in urban infrastructure, housing, sanitation, in water supply, all these things in urban areas. Nutrition factor, again the sanitation issue comes, and here remember that it is as much human habit that matters for your sanitation and therefore for your nutritional status. So if you don't get your habits right, you will never get nutritional status, no matter which policy you implement.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh Kumar. Now, Professor K.S. Gopal.
Very quickly to answer, I think it's very complex, very intelligent questions. I'm a layman at this, but important thing is what is the guiding principle. One way of looking at storage is you can storage, yes. The other way of looking at it is you can also give it to people to store it in their own homes. A simple thing like providing 50 kgs of rice at a prefixed price and 8 kgs of dal, which we have done, and is a very simple way of doing it. I think please understand the question of food is a question of power. It's a question of authority. That's how we like to control people. Whether nation states do it or we do it vis-a-vis the poor. I think that's it. So in the liberation of the poor can happen only when they are food confident, and we don't want the liberation of the poor. I think that's a very important. So I think somewhere we have to break that juggernaut. The other thing is that wastage part. Yeah, Pakistan has a system where if there's a wedding or a function, you can have only one key dish. India, if you attend a wedding, now I'm told 300, 400 items are being served. Chinese, Mongolian, Italian, etc., etc. I think this is shameful. And somewhere, the ethical questions come in. The other thing is, yes, will FDI in retail help it? Please remember that the FDI idea is basically for two reasons. One, they can import things directly, and so all the junk all over the world can be accumulated and brought into India. And secondly, India is a huge market of 300 million. So in no way is the hunger question related to the FDI question. But what it will certainly do is to shift our productive capacities into some other direction, because as people's income goes, they move away from cereals, etc., into a higher trajectory of. So very soon we are going to have what Europe is doing today, 40% being wasted. And we do it wasting not only in the refrigerators, we do it in public functions also. So I think there are very important ethical questions that today's society will have to handle and understand in order to pose it. If we look at it as academic questions, I think we are lost in this whole thing.
Thanks, Professor Gopal. And now I know we are between you and your lunch. And those of you who are eligible bachelors would have got message from Professor Gopal how to plan your menu for your wedding. So all the best. Thanks again to Youth Forum for this excellent panel. I'm very thankful to all of my panelists for excellent inputs. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, speakers. And just an announcement. The lunch will be served till 1:45. And all those people who registered with Abhishek Bhardwaj before the event and haven't registered today, please do register. Thank you.